ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरून् श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यो एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So we will continue from where we left. So here Lord Brahma is explaining the process of creation, and we saw how from the Mahavishnu, the Mahat Tattva comes, the sum total of material energy. From there, the Kala, the time comes, and then from there, the three modes of material nature comes, and from there, the actions come, and things like that. So anyway, this portion is a little technical in nature, and it will have a lot of details in this way. So if all of you study this again, going back, you will be able to grasp some of the details, and then if there is any questions is there, we can discuss also. Okay. सोऽहङ्कार इति प्रोक्तो विकुर्वन् समभूत्तृता वैकारिकस्थैजसश्च तामसश्चेति यद्भिदा द्रव्यशक्तिर्क्रियाशक्तिर्ज्ञानशक्तिरिति प्रभो. The self-centered materialistic ego, thus being transformed into three features, becomes known as the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance in three divisions, namely the powers that evolve matter, knowledge of material creation, and intelligence that guides such materialistic activities. Narada, you are quite competent to understand this. So Brahmaji is talking to Narad Muni. So he's telling that how the ego is one of the very very subtlest material elements. No, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. We call. So this false ego is one of the material elements. No, it is an entity, just like how we have earth, fire, and things like that. Like that, this ego is one of the material elements, and from the ego comes the three modes of nature, right? So and then okay. So and then the power to evolve matter, knowledge of material creation, the intelligence that guides the materialistic activities, all these things are generated, from this source, right? So and Brahmaji is telling Narada is quite competent to understand all these things, And purport: materialistic ego, or the sense of identification with matter, is grossly self-centered, devoid of clear knowledge of the existence of God. And this self-centered egoism of materialistic living entities is the cause of their being conditioned by the other paraphernalia and continuing their bondage of material existence. Right? So here we see that what is our connection to the material world, what is keeping us in the material world? This ego. Ego means a self-identification. No, ego means self-identification. So what we consider ourselves to be, that is what is called as ego. So now real ego or real identification means what? I am servant of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So then that is real ego. That is the real identification. So false ego means what? False ego means wrong identification. So our identification with this body, which is made of matter, or our identification with anything material, is called as the false ego. And this false ego, the moment I identify myself with anything matter, then it takes three different forms. the ego in the mode of goodness, the ego in the mode of passion, and ego in the mode of ignorance. Ego in the mode of ignorance means always morose, always oh, I cannot do this. This is like, having a very, very negative approach of the whole life. And then ego in the mode of passion means like, there is so much of craving for attaining things in this world. That is ego in the mode of passion. And ego in the mode of goodness is that understanding things as they are to greater extent, and then to be self-satisfied in the material world and things like that. So all these three things are materialistic egos, and the transcendental ego is or the real ego is, I am servant of Lord and trying to render service unto the Lord. So when we try to render service unto the Lord, immediately we become released from these three egos of the material material realm, right? So that's the this is self-centered egoism. This three modes of that takes in these three different forms. When we become conditioned to think that we are the matter, or we are anything other than the spirit in itself, so then it becomes the materialistic ego. In the Bhagavad Gita, the self-centered egoism is very nicely explained in the 7th chapter, verse 24 through 27. The self-centered impersonalist, without a clear conception of personality of Godhead, concludes in his own way that the personality of Godhead takes a material shape from his original impersonal spiritual existence for a particular mission. And this misleading conception of the Supreme Lord by the self-centered impersonalist continues even though he is seen to be very interested in Vedic literatures such as the Brahma Sutras and other highly intellectual sources of knowledge. This ignorance of the personal feature of the Lord is due simply to ignorance of mixture of different modes. The impersonalist thus cannot conceive of the Lord's eternal spiritual form of eternal knowledge, bliss, and existence. The reason is that the Lord reserves the right of not exposing himself to the non-devotee, who even after a thorough study of Vedic of literatures like Bhagavad Gita remains an impersonalist simply by obstinacy. This obstinacy is due to the action of Yoga Maya, the personal energy of the Lord that acts like an aid the camp by covering the vision of the obstinate impersonalist. Such a bewildered human being is described as Muda, or grossly ignorant, because he is unable to understand the transcendental form of the Lord as being unborn and unchangeable. If the Lord takes a form or material shape from his original impersonal feature, then it means that he is born and changeable from impersonal to personal. But he is not changeable, nor does he ever take a new birth like a conditioned soul. The conditioned soul may take a form birth after birth, but due to his conditioned existence in matter, but due to his conditioned existence in the matter, but the self-centered impersonalists, by their gross ignorance, accept the Lord as one of them because of self-centered egoism, even after so-called advancement of knowledge in the Vedanta. So I'll just summarize this. This is like, Prabhupada is mentioning about this aspect of impersonalist thinking that Lord, when they come as an incarnation, like their conception of Lord is that he is Brahman, he is Brahma Jyoti and things like that. And then when the Lord comes to perform his Leela, they take it as, he takes a material form like all of us. That is a mistake that they do. And just because they are not able to see the Lord's transcendental form, Lord's pure spiritual form, and they think that it is material form, so that means they have not seen the spiritual, they are not qualified to see the spiritual standard, right? So in that way, like, they are also very, very self-centered. So they are thinking like, like how we are, that is the same way like the Lord also is coming like that. So we should, there is one statement that Prabhupada often quotes, I think from Chanakya Pandit. So he says that Atmavad Manyate Jagat. So that means we think that the whole world is like us only. If we are going through some problem, or if we have a particular kind of a thought process, then we think that whole world is thinking like this only. That is how the impersonalists, they put the Lord also in that kind of position wherein no, I take a body, and if somebody gets a body, that means no, all bodies must be material only. So it is not like that. The Supreme Lord, when he comes, his body is not material. His body is completely spiritual. And even after studying all the Vedanta and Bhagavad Gita and things like that, these impersonalists are not able to understand the personal form of the Lord. So then one may question, like, no, what is the use of studying all these things? Yeah, that's a very important thing. No, if not for the grace of the Lord, even if I study all the things, no, it is not of much use. If only if I get the grace of the Lord, then I will be able to understand, know who the Lord is, right? So here we say, here Prabhupada is saying that this obstinacy is due to the action of Yoga Maya, a personal energy of the Lord that acts like an 8D camp, by that means a covering, a curtain kind of a thing, no, by covering the vision of the obstinate impersonalist. Right? So just see the meaning of this. 8D camp. Okay, it doesn't show the meaning for this. A military officer acting as a confidential assistant to a senior officer. Okay, so this Yoga Maya, or the Lord's Maya Shakti, no, it actually covers the Lord, and then the Lord actually has the privilege, whether to be exposed or not. So just by reading the Vedic literatures, we cannot just understand the Lord in that way. The Lord also, we need to get the grace of the Lord, and for that, we have to soften our heart, and we have to pray to the Lord that please reveal yourself to me. That is when we will be able to and if the Lord actually merciful to us, and then he reveals himself to us, then we will be able to know. If we have a challenging attitude towards the Lord, okay, I will try to understand this Lord, know who he is, by studying the Vedic literatures or doing some austerity and things like that. No, it is not possible. So we need to have that good heart also, to request the Lord, and then the Lord should be moved by our prayer. So that is when we will be able to understand him. Otherwise, it is not possible to understand him, right? So, and these materialists, this impersonalists, because they don't want to surrender to the Lord, the personal form of the Lord, they may study all the Vedanta and things like that, but then they will come back to the position of doing some social service or helping somebody's body, over the spiritual activities. So because they don't have the spiritual conviction, and they are not able to stay on the spiritual platform, right? So the Lord, being situated in the heart of every individual living entity, knows very well the tendency of such conditioned souls in terms of past, present, and future. But the bewildered conditioned soul hardly can know him in his eternal form. Like the Lord knows all of us, know what we are, but for us to know him is a very difficult task, right? By the will of the Lord, therefore, the impersonalist, even after knowing the Brahman and Paramatma feature of the Lord, remains ignorant of his eternal personal feature as ever-existent Narayana, transcendental to all material creation. The cause of such gross ignorance is constant engagement in the materialistic man in the matter of artificially increasing material demands. To realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to purify the materialistic senses by devotional service. The mode of goodness or Brahmanical culture recommended in the Vedic literatures is helpful to such spiritual realization, and thus the Jnana Shakti stage of the conditioned soul is comparatively better than the other two stages, namely Dravya Shakti and Kriya Shakti. Dravya Shakti means, Dravya means all the material elements are called Dravya, earth, water, fire, air, ether, and also all the material elements, they are called as Dravya and Dravya Shakti. And Kriya Shakti means this one energy to perform various activities using the Dravya, right? And then Jnana Shakti means to see things as they are, to see things as they are. What is this matter? What is the spirit? And matter is temporary, the spirit is permanent. And to have that kind of a vision is called Jnana Shakti, right? So these three Shaktis are there. Amongst them, the Jnana Shakti is considered to be a very wonderful platform to start our spiritual realization. If we are caught up in Dravya Shakti and Kriya Shakti, it's very, very difficult. Like that's a very low level of understanding, and then it's very difficult for a person to progress in Krishna consciousness, right? So Prabhupada is going to explain this more. The whole material civilization is manifested by a huge accumulation of materials, or in other words, raw materials for industrial purposes, and the industrial enterprise, that is Kriya Shakti. Raw materials, as I told, the materials that are used are all due to gross ignorance of spiritual life. When our consciousness is more on the technological things and technology and the gross elements of the material nature, so then it is, a person is driven by Kriya Shakti, and it is out of gross ignorance. It is very low level of consciousness. And then next is, in order to rectify this great anomaly of materialistic civilization based on the principles of Dravya Shakti and Kriya Shakti. So Kriya Shakti is like to use these matters, and then trying to do a lot of material advancement and things like that. So that is Kriya Shakti. Our materialistic civilization is mostly based on Dravya Shakti and Kriya Shakti, and one has to adopt to the process of devotional service of the Lord by adoption of the Karma Yoga mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9:27 as follows: Yat karoshi yad ashnashi yad juhoshi dadashi yat tapasyashi kaunteya tad kurushva madarpanam. So this is the essence of Karma Yoga, means whatever we want to do, yat karoshi, yad ashnashi, like whatever you eat, and yad juhoshi, whatever you give away, and dadashi, yat tapasyashi, whatever austerities you perform, Tat Kurushva Mad Arpanam. Mad means my, Arpanam means like as an offering. So the Lord is telling that whatever you want to do, you do, but then do it as an offering to me. So this is Karma Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga means whatever the Lord wants us to do. If we do that, then that is Bhakti Yoga. So whatever we want to do, we do, and then we offer it to the Lord, the results of it. So that is Karma Yoga. So this is a very interesting difference between Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So this is like very clearly like Yat Karoshi means whatever you want to do. So it's, the meaning is, O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. Whatever you want to do, you do, but then do it as an offering to me. So that is Karma Yoga, right? So now here in this shloka, we saw about the three aspects of the beginning. We started off with saying that how the self-centered ego actually produces the three modes of nature, and even the impersonalist, they are also in some platform of materialism. They are also affected by the self-centered ego. And how we can say that? Because they are not able to see the spiritual nature of the transcendental form of the Lord. The moment we are not able to see the spiritual things, that means we are in the material consciousness. That means we are in the three modes of nature. So that is why even the impersonalist, because they are not able to see the form of the Lord, they are considered to be within the material modes of nature. And it was mentioned about even though they study all the Vedic literatures, but still they will not be able to understand the Lord. Because the Lord has the right to reveal himself. The Lord has the Yoga Maya potency which covers him, right? And then we saw about the in the material realm, there are three kinds of Shaktis that are there: Dravya Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Jnana Shakti. Dravya Shakti is the lowest most consciousness, like where we are only going behind the material elements of this world, and Kriya Shakti is a step ahead, using the matter, like performing various activities. And then Jnana Shakti is to see what is matter and what is spirit, and then understanding the temporary nature of the matter, and detaching ourselves from there. So that is called the Jnana Shakti. And this Jnana Shakti is helpful for spiritual progress, right? It's helpful for spiritual progress, because from there we can actually see, if I am spirit and I must be engaged in service of Lord, so that a path will slowly get opened up when we are situated in Jnana Shakti. And then here we see that though because we have a lot of material elements around us, so then we can, if we have not developed that like sentiment towards the Lord, that everything, whatever he wants, I should do. So then we should at least start the karma yoga process. Whatever I want, I'll do, but I want to offer it as a offering to him, right? So that is an important thing. And whatever I want means not anything and everything. No, that also, like karma yoga is also described in the scriptures. No, whatever goal we have, no, we have to follow the scriptures. No, for like otherwise it will not become karma yoga. So, but at least like here we can see that, you know, still our desire is given prominence in the karma yoga, and then, you know, we offer the things, offer the dravya and kriya in the service of the Lord. And by offering the dravya and kriya in the service of the Lord, slowly we will become purified and we will come to the level of bhakti yoga, right? So where we start thinking, what does my Lord want? No, I want to do that, right? So that's this one. Text 25. Tasmat api bhuthader vikurvanadabun nabah tasya matra guna shabdo lingam yadrishtar adrishyayo. From the darkness of false ego, the first of the five elements, namely the sky, is generated. Its subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the seer is in relationship with the seen, right? So now we saw about how from Mahatattva the time comes, from time, this one, three modes of nature comes and things like that and all. So the three modes of nature is basically like the ego transformed into this three different modes. No, that's how the three modes of nature is explained. And then from the mode, from the darkness of false ego, no, from the false ego, like further, no, this different elements are coming out. The first element that comes out is the sky or ether, it is mentioned. So out of the Panchabhutas, earth, water, fire, air, ether, so this ether or the sky is the first thing that is generated. So now if you see, the creation starts from the subtle elements to the gross elements. No, the finer elements to the grosser elements. No, that's how the creation starts, right? So first thing that is created, no, are all very, very finer elements we cannot even perceive. No, this is the first element that we can actually perceive, the sky, no, or the ether, the space around. No, that space is generated at this point in time. No, from the false ego. Its subtle form is the quality of sound. No, now when the material element is produced, as sense object of, no, which is in relation to that material element is also produced. So sound exists in the medium of sky. No, that is also produced with the sky, right? So exactly as the seer is in relationship with the seen. So now if I have to explain, I have seen something. No, this statement can only be completed if I say the object I have seen. No, seen means like what you have seen, right? So the both the thing has to be there. Like, no, I have seen a computer, or I've seen a tree or something like that. So both the, no, like the seer and the seen, the both the things have to be established. In the same way here, the sky is there, sky's quality is sound. No, the both the things, like one sense object and the this one material element, they both come simultaneously, right? So purport: the five elements, namely sky, air, fire, water, and earth, are all but different qualities of the darkness of false ego. This means the false ego is the sum total of the Mahatattva, sum total form of the Mahatattva. This means that the false ego in the sum total form of Mahatattva is generated from the marginal potency of the Lord. And due to this false ego of lording it over material creation, ingredients are generated for the false enjoyment of the living being, right? So this is the origin of everything in this material world. This we can very nicely see. In the material world, every element is created just for sense gratification. So this, like, we can see that, this means the false ego is the sum total. False ego in the sum total form of Mahatattva is generated from the marginal potency of the Lord. Whose marginal potency? We, the living entities, are the marginal potency. And the false ego is generated from the living entity, right? And then this false ego of lording it over material creation, that is the source of generating all the different dravya in this material world. So all the dravya of this material world are by nature designed for sense gratification. That's the origin of all the material elements in this material world, right? So now when we try to use these things in the service of the Lord, so then the original false ego gets purified. Those who know a little bit of electrical this one, so if we have a dynamo, and then like if there is a electricity is passed, and then this it's just the motor, any motor that we have, if electricity is passed, the motor actually revolves. And then you may have seen this windmills and all. So in windmills there is no electricity is passed, but then the fan revolves, and because of the rotation of the fans, the motor produces electricity. No reverse effect is happening, right? So in the same way, initially, because of the false ego of enjoying this material world, from there all the dravya of this world is created. This dravya is created for the purpose of sense gratification, but then when this dravya is used in service of Lord, a reverse effect happens. What reverse effect happens? The dravya which is meant for sense gratification is used in the service of the Lord, and the false ego, which is created this dravya, that becomes purified to real ego, which is service to the Supreme Lord. So in this way, a reverse effect actually happens. That's the process of devotional service that we are following. We are taking the elements of this material world and using it in the service of the Lord, and that's the reverse effect we want to create in, right? So the living being is practically the dominating factor over the material elements as the enjoyer, though the background is Supreme Lord. Factually, save and except the Lord, no one can be called the enjoyer, but the living entity falsely desires to become the enjoyer. This is the origin of false ego, right? So this is where the false ego comes. The Lord says, Bhoktaram Ignatapasham Sarvalokam Maheshwaram. No, the Lord is the enjoyer. When we consider ourselves to be the enjoyer of things that we possess, then that's the point of false ego. That's where the false ego comes in. And false ego brings in all the material elements, right? So here in the beginning of the creation, the false ego produced all the material elements, and still we have that's the false ego that is actually driving this material world, right? So when the bewildered living being desires this, the shadow elements are generated by the will of the Lord, and the living entities are allowed to run after them as after a phantasmagoria. Phantasmagoria means like the mirage in the desert, no? So like mirage looks like water, but it is just the heat waves, no? So actually there is no water. So in the same way, like in this material world, all this various material elements are created just so that we can imagine that we want to enjoy this material world, and then we can go behind them. We had a desire to enjoy, but then away from the Supreme Lord. So, but then we don't know that the Supreme Lord is the actual enjoyer, and being as an assistant to Him, we can enjoy, and not by being away from Him, right? So, like it is, the statement is like, I want to be happy away from the Lord. Is like I want to drink water and quench my thirst, but I will not touch the water. That's the point here. I want to be happy means I want to be with the Lord. There is no point, there is no way we can become happy being away from the Lord, right? So that is why it is called as phantasmagoria, which is just kind of an illusion. Trying to enjoy away from the Lord. It is illusion. It is said that the first. It is said that it is said that first the tanmatra sound is created, and then the sky. And in this verse, it is confirmed that actually it is so. But sound is a subtle form of the sky, and the distinction is like that between the seer and the seen. The sound is the representation of the actual object, and the sound produced speaking of the object. The sound produced speaking of the object gives an idea of the description of the object. Therefore, the sound is the subtle characteristic of the object. Similarly, sound representation of the Lord in terms of his characteristics is the complete form of the Lord, as was seen by Vasudeva and Maharaj Dasharat, the fathers of Lord Krishna and Lord Rama. The sound representation of the Lord is non-different from the Lord himself, because the Lord and his representation in sound are absolute knowledge. So as we have seen that the name of the Lord is non-different from the Lord, and understanding the Lord and being situated in the service of the Lord is the ultimate end of all the Vedic knowledge, right? So it is the Vedanta. To come to the point of chanting the names of the Lord is called the Vedanta, or the ultimate end of the Vedic knowledge, right? So Lord Chaitanya has instructed us that in the holy names of the Lord, as sound representation of the Lord, all the potencies of the Lord are invested, right? Thus, one can immediately enjoy the association of the Lord by the pure vibration of sound representation of His holy name. And the concept of Lord is immediately manifested before the pure devotee. A pure devotee, therefore, is not aloof from the Lord, even for a moment. The holy name of Lord, as recommended in the Shastras, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, may therefore be constantly chanted by devotee aspiring to be constantly in touch with the Supreme Lord. Now, is a very, very important statement Prabhupada is writing. If we want to be always Krishna conscious or always in touch with the Lord, then we must practice chanting this Hare Krishna mantra constantly. Now, we may chant a particular number of rounds in the mala or in the counted way, but then we should try to chant the names of the Lord constantly, all the time, right? So all the time, if the tongue is engaged in chanting the names of the Lord, that is very, very amazing. Such a person is, in fact, a person who has such a consciousness where he is able to chant the names of the Lord constantly, he is really, really worshipable, even for great personalities, right? So, he is to be considered very saintly, such a person who is constantly chanting the names of the Lord, right? One who is thus able to associate with the Lord is sure to be delivered from the darkness of the created world, which is a product of false ego. Tamasima Jyotirgama. From darkness, let us move towards the light. So, and that is possible by constantly chanting the names of the Lord. Text 26 to 29. Nabashotha vikurvana dabut sparsha guno nila prana Paranvayach Shabdavamscha Prana Ojas Sahobalam Vayorapi Vikurvanat Kala Karma Swabhavatah Udapadyata Tejo Vai Rupavat Sparsha Shabdavad Tejasastu Vikurvanat Asidambo Rasatmakam Rupavat Sparsavat Shambho Goshavacha Paranvayat Visheshastu Vikurvanadambasho Gandhavanabhut Paranvayat Rasasparsha Shabda Rupa Gunanvitaha. So here we see that all the different elements like sound we saw, then the next elements of Rupa, Gandha and Sparsha and all those things are coming out, right? So, and with that, we will see fire, in the fire, after the sky comes the fire, air is sparsha, the quality of touch is created in the air, and then the next is fire. In that rupa, or the form is, we can actually see the form of the fire. We can touch, the fire will burn. We can have this sense of sparsha, and then we can also see the form of fire. The air we cannot see, right? So air is just, you can only perceive by sparsha, but then the fire you can perceive by sparsha, and then you can also perceive by rupa. You can actually see the fire. The next comes is the this one, water, and that water, you have the rasa, it is the taste is there, and then the earth, in the earth you will actually find the gandha, or the smell form. So in this way, all the different this one, rupa, sparsha, gandha and all those things are manifested, and with them the earth, water, fire, air, ether are also manifested, right? So all these things comes one after another from the previous form. Okay, because the sky is transformed, the air is generated with the quality of touch. Sparsha, sparsha, air comes first the quality of sparsha comes, and then the air is generated from there. And by the previous succession, the air is full of sound, and the basic principle of duration of life. Sense perception, mental power, and bodily strength, right? So this is one very important thing. We know Madhvacharya and we know Vayu. Vayu is like, anytime Vayu's avatar is there, like we see that, that's the powerful form of the incarnation. So we see Hanuman, he's a symbol of power, because he's like, what is that, amsha of Vayu, right? So Vayu means bodily strength, Vayu means mental power, and Vayu also means the sense perception. If the air is weak in the body, then a person will not be able to perceive. His sense perception will be very less. All his senses will be like, very dull, and then his mental power, his intellectual and mental power will be very weak, and the bodily strength also will be weak, right? So air is very, very important component in these three different ways. And it is mentioned by the previous succession, air is full of sound, because in sky, in the ether, only sound was present, and in the air, both sound and the sparsha, sense perception, or the touch sensation, these two things are present, right? So these are the two things which is there. So that's why when people do pranayam, they feel a lot of betterment in the mind control and bodily strength and things like that, because it's a regulation of air. If air is regulated in the body, these things are these things function in a better way, right? So then when the air is transformed in course of time and nature's course, fire is generated. From the sky, air is generated. From the air, fire is generated, right? So taking the shape with the sense of touch and sound. Okay, so like the fire, there is sound is also there. In the fire, you can touch and perceive also. And then now it is taking the shape also. The third perception, or the third element is that actually comes, that is form. Since fire is also transformed, there is a manifestation of water. The water source is fire. It may be a little difficult for us to understand, but if we see the logical flow, the sky has the sound, and the air has the sense of touch, and then the fire has the this one of form, you can perceive, and the water, water has sound, water has you can touch and perceive the water, and the water has a form also, you can see the water, and then water has taste also. With the addition of the element of taste onto fire, comes the water. That is how, like, we can actually see. And water is full of juice and taste, right? As previously, it also has the form and touch, and is also full of sound. All the previous characteristics are all included in this. And water being transformed from all variegatedness on earth appears odorous. Gandha. Gandha comes into picture. When the water transforms into earth, and as previously becomes qualified, full of juice, touch, sound, and form respectively. So earth has all the qualities. That is, earth has sound, earth you can touch, earth you can see, and earth you can taste also. There is some taste in the earth, and earth you can smell. All these different things actually comes. So sometimes we have some liquid substance which has smell also. That means a component of earth is added into it. Otherwise, you will not get the smell, right? So in this way, like, we can see that all these different elements actually come from one after another. Right from the Mahatattva, like the false ego, and then the three modes of nature, and then from the false ego also comes the sky, and from the sky, we get the this one air, and from air we get this one fire, and from fire water, and from water earth. So like this, the whole creation unmanifest. Manifest the whole creation. Purport: the whole process of creation is an act of gradual evolution and development from one element to another, reaching up to the variegatedness of the earth, as so many trees, plants, mountains, rivers, reptiles, bats, birds, animals, and varieties of human beings. The quality of sense perception is also evolutionary, namely generated from sound, then the touch, and from the touch to form, the taste and odor is also generated along with the gradual development of sky, air, fire, water, and earth. They are all mutually the cause and effect of one another. But the original cause is the Lord himself in his plenary portion as Mahavishnu lying in the causal water of the Mahatattva. So we saw that from Mahavishnu came the Mahatattva, and from Mahatattva came the false ego, and from there all these things has come. So Sarva Karana Karanam, or original cause of all these things, is the Supreme Lord Vishnu, right? So as such, Lord Krishna is described in Brahma Samhita as the cause of all causes, and this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10:8 as follows: Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattaha sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. So this is a very important sloka. No, everything emanates from me, right? So this is aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate. So like the qualities of sense of perception, the quality of sense perception are fully represented in the earth, and they are manifested in other elements to a lesser extent. So in the earth, all the five elements are there. No, Rupa, Gandha, Sparsha, Rasa, and and also the sound. All these things are fully present in the earth, and in other elements, one element is missing, like one aspect is missing. And in the sky there is sound only, whereas in the air there is sound and touch. In the fire there are sound, touch, and shape, and in the water there is taste also that is added to the list, and along with other perceptions, namely sound, touch, and shape. Along with other, namely sound, touch, and shape. In the earth, however, there are all the above mentioned qualities with an extra development of order, gandha. Therefore, on the earth, there is a full display of variegatedness of life, which is originally started with the basic principle of air. Disease of the body takes place due to the derangement of air within the earthly body of living beings. Mental disease results from a special derangement of air within the body, and as such, yogic exercise is especially beneficial to keep the air in order, so that disease of the body become almost nil by such exercises. When they are properly done, the duration of life also increases, and one can have control over the death also by such practices. That means control over the death means untimely death. When death comes, everybody has to surrender to it. A perfect yogi can have command over death and quit the body at the right moment, when he is competent to transfer himself to a suitable planet. The Bhakti Yogi, however, surpasses all the yogis, because by the dint of his devotional service, he is promoted to the region beyond the material sky and is placed in one of the planets in the spiritual sky by the supreme will of the Lord, the controller of everything. So text 30. Vaikarikan manojagye deva vaikarika dasha digvatharka pracheto svi vahinindro pendra mitrakaha. From the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and becomes manifest also as also the 10 demigods controlling the bodily movements. Such demigods are known as the controllers of the directions, the controller of air, the sun god, the father of Daksha Prajapati, the father of Daksha Prajapati, the Ashwini Kumaras, the fire god, the king of heaven, the worshipable deity in the heaven, the chief of Adityas, and Brahmaji, the Prajapati, all come into existence. Right? So this is the expansion of mode of goodness. So Vaikarikas, Vaikarika is the natural stage of creation, and the Tejas is the initiative of creation, while Tamas is the full display of material creation under the spell of darkness of ignorance. Manufacture of the necessities of life in factories and workshops, excessively prominent in the age of Kali or in the age of Machine, is the summit stage of the quality of darkness. What we are doing right now, the technological advancement, that's the highest level of mode of ignorance. That's the technology means highest level of mode of ignorance, right? So such manufacturing enterprises by human society are in the mode of darkness because factually there is no necessity for the commodities manufactured. Human society primarily requires food for subsistence, shelter for sleeping, defense for protection, and commodities for satisfaction of the senses. The senses are practical signs of life, as will be explained in the next verse. Human civilization is meant for purifying the senses. The objects of the objects of sense satisfaction should be supplied as much as absolutely required, but not for aggravating artificially sensory needs. So that means the senses should be supplied the sense objects, but as much as it is absolutely required. So not extravagant, right? Food, shelter, defense, and sense gratification are all needs in material existence. Otherwise, in its pure conditions, uncontaminated state of original life, the living entity has no such needs. The needs are therefore artificial, and in the pure state of life, there is no such need. As such, increasing the artificial needs, as is the standard of material civilization, or advancing the economic development of human society, is a sort of engagement in darkness without knowledge. By such engagement, human energy is spoiled because human energy is primarily meant for purifying the senses in order to engage them in satisfying the senses of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, being the supreme possessor of spiritual senses, is the master of the senses, Rishikesha. Rishika means the senses, and Isha means the master. The Lord is not the servant of the senses, or in other words, he is not directed by the dictation of the senses, but the conditioned souls or the individual living entities are servants of the senses. They are conducted by the direction or dictation of the senses, and therefore material civilization is a kind of engagement in sense gratification only. The standard of human civilization should be to cure the disease of sense gratification, and one can do this simply by becoming an agent for satisfying the spiritual senses of the Lord. The senses are never to be stopped in their engagement, but one should purify them by engaging them in the pure service of pure service of sense gratification of the master of the senses. That means we should offer our services for the senses of the Lord, for the Lord's senses to be purified. For satisfied, and that is the actual purpose of devotional service, right? So material life means to go behind the dictations of the senses, but then spiritual life means to satisfy Rishikesha, or the master of the senses, right? In the instruction, this is the instruction of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna wanted, first of all, to satisfy his own senses by his decision not to fight with his kinsmen and friends. But Lord Krishna taught him the Bhagavad Gita just to purify Arjuna's decision for sense gratification. Therefore, Arjuna agreed to satisfy the senses of the Lord, and thus he fought the battle of Kurukshetra as the Lord desired. The Vedas instructed us to get out of the existence of darkness and go forward on the path of light. Tamasima Jyotirgama. The path of light is therefore to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Misguided men or less intelligent men follow the path of self-realization without any attempt to satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord by following the path shown by Arjuna and other devotees of the Lord. On the contrary, they artificially try to stop the activities of the senses, that is yoga system, or they deny the transcendental senses of the Lord, that is jnana system. So like yoga system, what happens is that they try to artificially, they try to stop the activities of the senses. They try to deprive themselves of the sense gratification of the world, and then they try to engage in the yogic system of controlling the senses. And then the jnana platform is, they have controlled their own senses. Now, like they should apply everything what is there in the service of the Lord, but they will not do that. They will say that no material this ones, I don't want to touch the matter, and I have a complete control of my senses. That is not what is expected. We have to take everything what is there and offer it in the service of the Lord. That is the bhakti system, right? So yoga system means stopping the activities of the senses, where the senses is still not controlled fully. Jnana system means the senses are controlled, but we are not allowing the material elements to be used in the service of the Lord. no, or we are not allowing ourselves also to be used in the service of the Lord. So we are just depriving, no, denying the senses of transcendental senses of the Lord, right? So there is nothing more is there. No, why should I serve the Lord? No, that's the kind of jnana system actually. The devotees, however, are above the yogis and the jnanis because pure devotees do not deny the senses of the Lord. They want to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Only because of the darkness of ignorance do the yogis and jnanis deny the senses of the Lord and thus artificially try to control the activities of the diseased senses. In the diseased condition of the senses, there is too much engagement of the senses in the increasing material needs. When one comes to see the disadvantage of aggravating the sense activities, one is called jnani. And when one tries to stop the activities of the senses by the practice of yogic principle, he is called a yogi. But yogi means Ashtanga yogi generally. So, but when one is fully aware of the transcendental senses of the Lord and tries to satisfy his senses, one is called a devotee of the Lord. The devotees of the Lord do not try to deny the senses of the Lord, nor do they artificially stop the actions of the senses, but they do voluntarily engage in purified senses in the service of the master of the senses, as was done by Arjuna, thereby easily attaining the perfection of satisfying the Lord, the ultimate goal of all perfection. Okay, so do we have, okay, this small link can be. तैजसा तु विकुर्वाणाद् इन्द्रियाणि दशां भवन् अन्यान शक्तिक्रिया शक्तिर्बुद्धिप्राणश्च तैजसौ श्रोत्रं त्वग्घ्राणदिग्जिह्वा वाग्दोर्मेह मेढ् मेढ् मेढ्राग्निपायव मेढ्राग्नि hungry payava. Okay, so translation: by further transformation of mode of passion, the sense organs like the ear, skin, nose, eyes, tongue, mouth, hands, genitals, legs, and the outlet for evacuation, together with intelligence and living energy, are all generated. So here, living energy means not the living entity. No, living entity is not produced out of the material transformation. This is living energy is a little different from there. But what the living condition in the material existence depends more or less on one's intelligence and the powerful living energy. Intelligence to counteract the hard struggle for existence is assisted by the sense for acquiring knowledge, and the living energy maintains himself by manipulating the active organs like the hands and legs. But on the whole, the struggle for existence is an exertion of the mode of passion. Therefore, all sense organs headed by intelligence and the living energy, prana. Living energy means prana. That is prana, apana, vayana, udana, all those things. They are not counted as airs. No, they are like, in one sense, you can say they are air, but then they are different from air. They are called prana. Prana Shakti is a different this one. So that is technically, Prabhupada is putting it as living energy here. Living entity is spirit soul. Spirit soul is different from living energy, prana. So these two are completely different, this ones. The living energy, prana, are different products and byproducts of the second mode of nature called passion. This mode of passion, however, is product of the air element as described before. Okay, text. This could be like technical this one. So let's just go through these things, and over a period of repeated study, we will be able to understand the subject matter a little more clearly. The first go, it is very, very difficult to understand this whole concept of creation. At least this much we can understand. From the subtle elements or the finer elements, the gross elements become manifest. That is the progression. And we see that from the Mahavishnu, the Mahatattva comes. From there, the like false ego, and from false ego, three modes of nature, and also the this one material element of sky comes. From the sky, then we get the air, then we get the fire, water, earth, and things like that. and like from the mode of passion, from mode of goodness, all the devatas come, and from different personalities come and things like that. And from the mode of passion, we see that the sense organs and things like that and all are coming. So actually it's a big chart. If we put it in a chart, it is a huge this one. So to keep the connectivity just in a like oral form in this way, like it'll be a very, very difficult task. So if we make a chart, we can actually understand this whole thing, how one thing is coming from the another, and what is the trigger for one thing to come from another, and things like that. So in this way, the whole thing can be explained. The whole material creation can be explained. So this much of detail, one thing that we can see, this much of enormous detail is there in our scriptures, how the whole material creation has come about, right? So even our modern science cannot come even closer to this one. And the yogis and the great personalities, like who are trying to attain liberation, they are not anyway like what is that in lack of any knowledge. They know all these things, and that's how they are able to control their prana, they are able to control their air, they're able to transform, they're able to almost dissolve their body by reversing the whole process. That's the yogic process, is to reverse the whole thing, and then release the eternal soul and get liberation, right? So that's our yogis of the traditional age. They had a complete understanding of this process of creation, and they know the process of reversing the creation and liberating the soul, right? So that's how powerful our Vedic culture was. And this idea of Indians were like less intelligent, and they didn't have much of knowledge, and we could able to get some knowledge only after Britishers came and the introduction of English language and things like that. But actually speaking, what is there in our Sanskrit cannot even properly be represented in English. That much of knowledge is there in the in our scriptures. And this is the wealth of knowledge actually. And we should be very proud of having such wonderful scriptures, where we not only have the devotion to the Lord, we know, just like a blueprint, we know everything what is there in the creation. That's how much detailed our scriptures actually reveal, right? So we should be very proud of being part of this Sanatana Dharma culture, right? So thank you very much for listening, and we will meet again tomorrow. Nirantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.